Podcast for holistic enthusiasts and anyone curious about the world of holistic wellness. Whether you're watching live on YouTube or listening on Spotify, you're exactly where you need to be. You're joining me, Jamie, also known as Allied, a holistic coach certified in 10 areas of holistic health. In this space, you'll discover insightful wellness tips, hear from holistic experts, and hear from guests who share their motivational stories. Get comfortable and join us on this episode. Welcome to the lounge. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Elizabeth Kipp, a remarkable healer and stress management and historical trauma specialist. Elizabeth has dedicated her life to helping others through trauma-trained and yoga-informed addiction recovery coaching, ancestral clearing, compassionate inquiry, and yoga. Her personal journey is one of true resilience. After overcoming over 40 years of chronic pain, anxiety, panic attacks, and addiction, Elizabeth now thrives in long-term recovery, guiding others to unlock their healing potential. She's also the international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Get ready to dive deep into Elizabeth's powerful insights on how to break free from suffering and live a life of true healing and fulfillment.
Welcome, everybody, to Allied's Holistic Lounge, and I want to welcome my guest, Elizabeth Kipp. Hello, how are you today?
Well, thank you so much, Allied. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm doing great today. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on this show. I really had a good experience with you when we had our initial interview and learning about your journey and being clearing ancestral trauma. For people who are listening, can you go into detail with that and explain if some people who might not know exactly what that means?
Sure. So ancestral clearing is an actual healing modality that was pioneered by Howard Wills and further developed and taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. I'm one of his practitioners. I've been in the work for 11 years, but what does that even mean, right? Ancestral clearing is based on the understanding that we come into this world with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. And by burdens, we mean the unresolved business, unresolved traumas maybe that they experience. They end up in our nervous system, and they show up in our lives as different kinds of patterns, like usually patterns of negativity, like difficulty with conflict, not being able to have safe conversations with people. Like I grew up in a family that was, my mom was, they were both suffering from the effects of World War II. And so there was a lot of hiding. Anything that was even remotely uncomfortable was hidden under the rug. So we don't talk about that. Was one of the ways that the family trauma, the generational trauma showed up. We don't talk about that. And the other, so that's an example of war trauma, either difficulty resolving conflict or ignoring any kind of conflict at all, just like not even interacting. So those are kind of two extremes. Also, there are wounds around scarcity. So we see a lot of issues with abundance, such as I can barely pay my bills every month. I never seem to get ahead. No matter what I do, it doesn't work for me, that kind of thing. We see that a lot. So those are like three examples of how unfinished business, the effects of unresolved trauma in the lineage can show up in our lives.
Right. So So how do you see the connection between historical trauma and chronic pain? Because you
Mm-hmm.
both personally and in your work with others.
That's a great question. Um, I really didn't understand how much historical trauma was affecting my own chronic pain experience until I finally healed from it. I kind of had to be at the other end of it. But I'll give you an example. So, as I mentioned, my parents had trauma from World War II, and one of the things that happened with my mom was uh, her mother was killed in the Second World War in a ship that was uh, torpedoed by the Germans, as it was passenger ship, and she died there. And my mom really never got over that. Now, how did that show up? It showed up as we don't talk about her mother. She adored her mother, but we weren't allowed to talk about her. So I never really learned much about my grandmother. Um, and also, my mother suffered from bipolar disorder, untreated, undiagnosed. And the trauma experts nowadays are beginning to really come around to looking at something like bipolar disorder as a response to trauma. Hers went untreated and undiagnosed, unrecognized. So she wasn't seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't have any tools. We have tools nowadays. She didn't have any tools. All she had was reaction. She turned to alcohol and anger and frustration spilled out. And so as a child, I was constantly trying to figure out a way to make my mom happy. Like I would turn myself inside, outside, and backwards to try and do what can I do in this moment to make her happy, kind of thing.
Right.
And one of the things that we do as children is we unconsciously, but it's what happens. We take on their burdens. So I actually did what I could, which it was unconscious, so I can't really explain it, but I did what I could to carry some of her pain. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's kind of what we do as kids, and it does make sense because our parents are our caretakers, and if
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing well, they're not going to be able to take care of us well. So we're going to try and take care of them, right? It's that kind of thing. So it showed up for me as um, the emotional wound of I can't do enough. My mother's not happy, and I can't do enough uh, to 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 bring happiness to my own mother. And so, and because of that, I really suffered from the I'm not enough. It wasn't just I can't do enough. I turned that into I'm not enough. And so then that became very personal, and that's very damaging. And interestingly, you brought in the chronic pain thing, which is clear for the audience. Define chronic pain as any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic. Any pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial. The brain can't tell the difference between one kind of pain or another. It all sends the same signal. It
Mm-hmm.
hurts into the brain, the nervous system. So, a grief experience, if it's experienced for 3 months or more, 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, a grief experience is the same as a physical illness that lasts for 3 months or more. So a broken bone and a broken heart, the brain can't tell the difference.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that hit home for me as far as like you talking about your mother and the her being bipolar. Personally, I went through I was diagnosed with being bipolar, and PTSD. And it wasn't until I started doing my shadow work and my inner healing that I don't have the anger outburst. I don't have the what they call the manic episodes, the highs and lows, up and down constantly. So it definitely does go back to childhood trauma.
Mhm.
And I know for me specifically, it was that not feeling good enough, abandonment issues from my parents, both of my parents. So, and that rage, anger is a secondary emotion to hurt. So because I was hurt, I was acting out in anger and constantly triggered about certain things and just exploding. So yeah, and that must have not, I mean, couldn't have been like too good, going through that as a child. And now that I look back, I'm glad that I did my healing because I have a 11-year-old son. So,
Mm. That's
he's
awesome. You're breaking the cycle.
exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely want to break it with him, and I'm teaching him things as I learn and
Hmm.
things that I've learned along the way.
Hmm.
So,
Beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah. So it's so important.
definitely. So let's talk about a little bit more about the ancestral clearing, because I know my friends down in the chat. Hi everyone, by the way. I don't want to not acknowledge everyone their hellos in the chat. I don't know if you can see the chat
I
as well.
can. I'm
Okay,
delighted that you're all here. Thank you so much for coming.
awesome. So yeah, if you could explain like what is your techniques as far as like ancestral clearing?
Well, there are about 30 different techniques that John Newton teaches at this point. He's got 4 different levels of training that he takes people through. Um, and I'd like to share one with everyone here. So this is an interesting practice in that uh, there are 4 elements in this practice, or maybe 5. One that you want help. I'll include that one. Wanting help, right? And then the 4 pillars really of the practice are: we're looking to creator, God, source, whatever you want to call whatever made all of this creation. We're asking it to help us release that which no longer serves us. So if I've got a an issue, like I had an issue with my mom because I didn't know how to deal with it, right? Um, and I wasn't able to clear that by myself. I wasn't able to release that and resolve that by myself. I brought in this practice and asked, creator to help me, and I got the help. It was amazing. So uh, so we're referencing creator energy. So as a practitioner here, my job is to focus the work, but I'm not doing the healing, just so everybody's really super clear on that. Creator's doing the healing, and your presence and your wanting help is part of the magic of the healing that we get in ancestral clearing. So, creator. Next one is we want to bring in the thing that we want to release, and we use the word forgive to mean offering up that which no longer serves us. Offering up that which no longer serves us. Another way of looking at forgiveness, that word forgive, it certainly doesn't mean condone anything, but it does mean, in terms of our own life, it means being able to step into the present moment without the imprint of the past pulling on us. That's another way of looking at forgiveness, is being able to step into the present clean, right, without the past pulling on us. or frets about the future, which are all past-based anyway. So second thing is we bring in forgiveness, the thing we're going to forgive around. And then the third and fourth elements are humility and gratitude. So we say please and thank you. And those are the four elements. And if you'd like, I can give you an experience of ancestor clearing, and then we can have a conversation about how everybody, what your experiences were, and any questions that you have when we're done. How does that sound?
Sounds good. I'm sure everybody in the chat would enjoy that, and everybody in the future watching this and listening.
Okay, very good. Okay, so everyone who's listening, then the replay is just as powerful as the live, because we're working in the present moment, and through the present moment we have access to the past, present, and future all at once. The quantum physicists tell us that, and that's why this practice works at all. We have access to the past through the present. So everyone listening to this, I'd love for you just to find a comfortable seat or place. If you're driving, do the driving. You'll listen to this later. Find a comfortable seat and notice what sensations you're feeling in the body. Like I'm feeling my sitting bones on the chair, and my foot, I've got a couple feet on the floor, and I can feel the pressure of that. I can feel my back on the chair as well, so I can feel the pressure of that. And I have a little bit of tingling or something going on above my eyebrows. That's just an example of what I'm feeling. Everybody's different. And I would rate mine on a scale of 0 to 10 in terms of the intensity of what I'm feeling at about a 3. So I'd like you to get what the sensations are, and then rate the whole sensation, the whole body sensation as 1 number from 0 to 10. And then I want you to just breathe normally and let these words pass over you. Infinite Creator, all that you are, source of all that is, was, and ever will be. We ask humbly and gratefully that you help everyone listening to this and all of their relationships, all of their ancestors, and all of their relationships through all relevant time, space, dimension, lives, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all the times they felt let down by life, by family members, by relationships, by anyone representing the Creator. And for any time they felt let down by the Creator in any name or form. Please help them all forgive one another and forgive themselves, and be at peace with one another and at peace with themselves. Please and thank you. For all the times you were abandoned, not supported, nurtured, loved, and cherished in the ways that you needed. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. For the times you didn't support, nurture, and love others in the ways they needed, but just weren't able to be there for one another. For any time you were out of integrity with one another, or another out of integrity with you. Please help you all forgive and release one another, forgive and release yourselves. For the highest good, please and thank you. For all war, battle, holocaust, genocide, persecution, slavery, injustice of any kind, any oppression, misuse of power, position, authority, politically, judicially, legally, medically, spiritually, or any other way. For all slander, libel, and other misuse of the power of the word. Please help everyone involved, directly or indirectly, to forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. For all hurts and wrongs, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual, financial, through thought, word, or action. All that happened and all you made it mean. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. For all suicide, incest, murder, rape, abortion, infidelity, miscarriage, all of it. Everyone involved in any way. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. For all the hurts and wrongs to the earth, the life of the earth, Native, Indigenous, First Nation, and Aboriginal people. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves for all that happened, no matter what it was, and be at peace with one another and at peace with yourselves. Please and thank you. For all betrayal, stealing, gaslighting, backbiting, jealousy, secrecy, or lying. For any time words were left unspoken to keep the peace in the moment, and any resulting resentment. Please help everyone forgive one another and forgive yourselves, please, and thank you. For any time you believed, felt, or were shown you weren't enough. For the times you tried to earn or learn your way into the value in your family, in your relationships, or into the grace and love of the Creator. For all that led up to this and arose from it, please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. For the highest good, for once and for all, please and thank you. For all empathic hurts and wrongs, times you took on others' unresolved issues, carried or shouldered their burdens. For all adversity, struggle, and hardship you saw, especially as children. For all dark night of the soul experiences, please help you all forgive each other and forgive yourselves, all family members and all relationships. Times this was done to you, times you did this to others, please and thank you, Infinite Creator, all that you are. Please and thank you. For the times you weren't shown or encouraged to stand up, speak up, and do things your way. For all the times you didn't feel safe to say no when appropriate. And for all the times someone didn't respect your no when you said it. Please help you all forgive your parents, your family members, your relationships. Help them all forgive you. Help you all forgive yourselves, please and thank you. For all hurts and wrongs, anything we left out, if it serves the highest good, we include it now. For all that happened and all you made it mean. Everything that led up to and arose from hurts, wrongs, limitation, or burden of any kind that's not serving the highest good, we ask all of you, everyone involved directly or indirectly, to forgive your parents, your grandparents, siblings, children, grandchildren. Help you all forgive yourselves, please, and thank you. Your whole family and lineage. Help you forgive your cousins, aunts, uncles, step, in-laws, hidden, secret, foster, adopted, and all other significant people, beings, family members, relationships, role models, and authority figures. Help them all forgive you. Help you all forgive yourselves, please, and thank you. Infinite Creator, all that you are, please and thank you. For the highest good, please help all of you release all weight, pain, burden, sin, debt, death, negativity, limitation of any kind, real or imagined. Please and thank you, please and thank you, please and thank you. And just take a nice big breath in and let it out, and just notice how that feels in the body and what the number is compared to when you started.
It was like so relaxing. Like the first time that we did it, I was like so relaxed. And this time I didn't want to go too deep into it because I didn't want to fall asleep on the podcast. So I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this so I can get like really deep into it. But I could, for me, I could feel the tension in my neck. It was like it started to move up and into my neck, and I had to move it, and then I could feel it like release.
Interesting. I love how it moves. It's one of the things that the body holds on to these unresolved burdens, and it takes a lot of energy to hang on to that stuff. So when we finally release it, we feel we call it the alchemy of transformation. We a lot of times we'll feel heat in the body, and we'll feel energy moving. And oftentimes people say they feel lighter because they're not having to hold on to that energy anymore. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
I think that's what I said to you the first time that we did it. I said I was like, I felt so much lighter and just like carefree.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments in the chat that they want to share about their experience?
Well, we're waiting for that. They might have fell asleep.
Oh goodness. So the indie lady says tension's gone from 5 to 0.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. And Yo has said, this is so needed for me. That's awesome. Yeah. Excellent.
Awesome. So I have a question about you. You talked about you dealt with chronic pain for 40 years. Um, so how did you overcome that, and what kind of chronic pain were you dealing with?
Oh, I had a couple of kinds of pain, not understanding that a lot of it was emotional, but I had gut pain. I had what they call irritable bowel syndrome. I had that for as long as I can remember, until I finally cleared it. And also when I was 14, I fell off a horse and broke my fifth lumbar. It split in two, and the front part of it moved forward and pulled my leg nerves with it. Um, and it's so interesting because I was an equestrian as a kid, and I had seen people fall and get carried off in litters. And I was able to get up and walk after that accident. It hurt, but I was able to walk. So I didn't think anything happened particularly other than it hurt. I was just like, I didn't realize I'd broken a bone in my spine. I had no idea. Um, but it gives you an idea of the level of chronic pain and how normalized it had become in my nervous system by the time that accident happened, that I could walk away from something like that and think like, it'll pass. Like, this is just part of life. That was what it was like for me. I went in and I went on. I dealt with that for 7 years before it really caught up with me, and I started seeing doctors to see what they could do. Oh, you have an old accident. Oh, I know when that happened. We finally got an X-ray, and it's like, oh, that's what happened then. And the chiropractors kept me going for another 7 years. Then I had to have surgery because that break became unstable, and they were worried that the spine was going to slip. That bone was going to slip right off the spine, and I wouldn't be able to walk.
Wow.
So I went through 4 surgeries to correct that, and the one of them really built a box around, a steel box right around that space to hold it together, and it's still there. But what was interesting was every time I had surgery, the pain got worse, and they gave me more and more pain medicine, and the pain just escalated. And they told me I wouldn't heal from chronic pain. That was their pronouncement. And I had science. I've been trained as a scientific researcher, so I understood something about what we can say about things. And I heard them. And you see, Western science works in a scientific framework, and I got trained in that. So when they made that pronouncement, you can't heal from chronic pain, I was like, wait a minute, that's not a fact. Science is not facts, it's probabilities. So you're not being honest with me because you're not bringing, it's probable that. They didn't even say that. They said you will not heal. So I was like, you've forgotten the framework you're working in here and the rules of the game. And then the other thing is I realized that they were assuming I wouldn't heal because they came to that conclusion. So they never asked the question, why isn't Elizabeth healing? And that was a mistake. I knew also that the framework the scientific framework they were working within was telling me a lot about the model they were using for healing, but it was telling me more about their model and its assumptions than it was telling me about the body's ability to heal. The scientific framework lives in a part of the all that is, because science can only comment on what it can observe, measure, and describe. But we live in the all that is, not just in the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. And I'm not discounting science. I'm just saying it's a limited framework. And we heal in the all that is, not just in the scientific framework part. So I knew that I was going to have to look in the outside of the scientific framework for my healing. Because the doctors I was working with were stuck in that model. Now, it was interesting when I finally, and so I worked with all kinds of different healers, I work with massage therapists and Reiki healers, and I had a yoga practice for a long time, limited, but because of what I couldn't do. But it kept me flexible enough so that when I finally met a doctor who understood he understood the Western medical model and its limitations, but he also was an Eastern Qigong healer. So he had a whole nother energetic approach that he brought in. And he brought in John Newton of Health Beyond Belief, who was an ancestor clearing practitioner. So I had these three very powerful, with the Western science, the Eastern stuff, and ancestor clearing. They just created this beautiful a space for me to heal. Plus, he helped me get off all the medications the doctors were on. So that was another piece of it. Medications are not going to help you heal from chronic pain. They're just going to kind of lock it in more.
Right, right. I even heard the expression that like your body has to heal twice. It not only has to heal from the whatever you're suffering from, but also it has to heal from the medication that you put in your body.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was what I was going to say. They gave me opiates and benzodiazepines, and the last 15 years I was on fentanyl and Ativan. So you're not going to meet too many people that weren't fentanyl for 15 years and lived to tell the story. And so what opiates do to the system is you can't breathe well because it depresses the lung, and we need nourishment from the air. And we need all that, and we also expel a lot of waste through our exhale. And when your respiration is depressed, you're not bringing nutrients in or letting them out. So you've got this toxic soup happening in your lungs and your cells. Also, opiates are dehydrating, so you're not getting enough fluid. And they also paralyze the gut, so you're not digesting your food. So the reason that opiates are helpful. I'm not saying like throw them out, don't ever use them. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that opiates are very powerful for when we've been like in an automobile accident, or we've had some kind of serious physical trauma. Then we're so charged up by it that we can't rest. That's when opiates are helpful, but for a few days, not for years and years. That's the issue, right? So, and then the benzodiazepine, that's another thing that just completely messed with my sleep cycle, and that's where the panic attacks came in. So, those things are not healing what I've just described. None of those things are things that heal. So you're absolutely right. We have to heal from our whatever's causing the pain to begin with, and then the effects of the medicine as well. Yeah, beautifully said.
Right, right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I'm not going to go too much into modern medicine because I don't want to get like strikes or anything from YouTube. So we'll let that one pass. But I definitely do. I have my opinions, strong opinions about modern medicine. So let's talk a little bit about your book, because you're also an author as well. Do you wanna tell us a little bit about your book and what that's about, and how you decided to write your book?
Sure. So the doctor that took me through, got me through the chronic pain was he wrote this book. His name was Dr. Peter Prescott, and he wrote this book, Conquer Chronic Pain: An Innovative Mind-Body Approach. And it's doctory, and there's beautiful exercises in the back of the book, which I've done. And he explains it really well from his point of view. And when I went through his program, and his book came out about a year after I went through his program, I was like, this is great. And I would like to write a book for doctors, nurses, people that care for chronic pain sufferers, family members, friends of chronic pain sufferers, and for chronic pain sufferers, so that they understand, A, you can heal from chronic pain, B, what the voice of a chronic pain, what's going on in the mind of a chronic pain sufferer, because there's certain patterns. Chronic pain, as we defined it, but what happens in the brain because of chronic pain is we have an accentuated negative thinking habit that is created, and we get chaos in the brain. And so we can't think straight, and the thinking that we do we tend to our tendency, our experiences is that we turn that into anger at others, a blame at others, or we turn it into ourselves. I'm wrong, you're wrong, I'm wrong, this is wrong. It's like, it's a very negative experience, and that's actually a result of the changes in the brain that happen because of chronic pain. So the way you heal from it is you heal the changes. You heal the changes in the brain, and then that stuff falls away. Mm. And that's what this book addresses. So the reason it's a different kind of book from the other books about chronic pain out there is that it shares what the voice of a chronic pain sufferer sounds like, and it adds the modalities that I used, including ancestor clearing. I don't think anybody else has written about that particular modality. The things that help me heal, and I think it's really important that chronic pain sufferers actually can hear that someone else understands what they're going through. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and felt seen and heard for the first time because I've had the experience of chronic pain, and I understand the territory they're working in. And it's so important that we feel seen and heard as a way of beginning to feel safe in our own body, rather than being like constantly in this fight or flight mode.
Right. Yeah. Like you, I've also experienced, went through my struggles with chronic pain. I was actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. Mm. So that sent me into, like, dealing with the pain constantly. You sends you into a depression, and that depression was very hard to get out of, if I can talk. Mm-hmm. So I can definitely see where you're saying, like, the brain, because I've even heard that, like, when you get stuck in that negative mind pattern, that it actually changes your neurotransmitters in your brain, and you become almost addicted to that negative thought process.
Oh, so, yes, we can get into what we call a stress habit. We get addicted to our stress, and then the work, as we begin to, and I'm still working on this after 11 years. The work is to retrain the nervous system, not just into a new way of living, but to be comfortable in a new way of living when it's actually comfortable being in the stress pattern. Mm-hmm. So you're not just breaking the stress pattern, you're creating a new pattern for the nervous system, and finding comfort with that is it's a journey. I'm sure you've experienced it, because you've done your own healing, so you've had experienced at least some aspect of what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, and they do say that fibromyalgia comes from a traumatic experience, which I do. Looking back, I see where it came from, because I actually was in a trucking accident during my trucking career, and I thought that I was like a goner. I thought I was dead. I basically, like, threw my hands up. So that, of course, like, that was a traumatic experience.
Wow.
And then, like, because of that, my adrenal glands were hyperactive. So therefore, I actually ended up being diagnosed with Hashimoto's.
Okay. Yeah, that's thyroid for sure.
Yeah. So, like, it just spiraled with, like, that traumatic accident, or that traumatic event, sending my nervous system into fight or flight, and it was just hyper all the time, stimulated. So it's when you look back and you trace the steps, you can see that it definitely stems from a lot of our physiological reactions stem from emotions and things that have happened in the past.
Well, yeah, emotional pain can journal over into physical pain. As I said, there's, chronic pain is any pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The brain really can't tell the difference. And the other thing with chronic pain, remember I mentioned chaos and negativity in the brain. The nervous system, we have a stress response in the nervous system, and it goes into the on position when we're under threat, either real or perceived. Stress response, which brings a whole host of physiological and psychological things into the system to address the threat. And then once the threat is addressed, where the stress response goes back to normal. Well, guess what happens in chronic pain? The stress response gets stuck in the on position. And so now the nervous system is hypervigilant. It's constantly spinning out stress hormones, which are toxic to the system in terms of at that level. And you better believe there's going to be some fallout in the nervous system. It's going to be a big hit to the immune system, which is part of fibromyalgia and Hashimoto's. So connected to that. Yes, the chronic pain, CPTSD is definitely a chronic pain. We can have chronic pain as a result of, because I was one of those people. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Yo and Rachel H. And let's see, we had Denise is here, and we had someone else in the chat who I can't see them now, but somebody else in the chat who I haven't recognized, and I appreciate their presence.
Was it Denise saying, I'm struggling with bad pain?
Yeah, yeah.
So, any tips or tricks about how you overcame your pain and your chronic pain, and what advice could you give to our listeners?
That's a big question, which is why Peter wrote a book, Dr. Prescott wrote a book, and we both wrote books about it. It's a nice pair. Those two together are a really nice pair for somebody who's trying to heal from chronic pain. But I'll give everybody a couple of very important pieces right here. One, when I went into Dr. Prescott's pain management program, I was detoxing off drugs. I was in a room with 20 other people I didn't know. It kind of surprised me there were 20 other people that had my same issue. So that was kind of nice, but still, I didn't know who they were. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying to keep my act together in the room full of strangers, right? And Dr. Prescott starts the conversation with, you're not going to believe this. What are you doing to contribute to your pain? And I'm telling you, I heard that, and in my head, the first thing I heard my head say, my voice say was like, I can't believe you just said that in this room of all places, right? I thought that was my viewpoint perspective at that time was, what are you talking about? The pain's doing it to me. So I walked into that room and lived for all these years with the feeling that the belief that the pain was doing it to me and I had no control over it. And what was interesting about his question was, I got mad at first. I was like, I can't even believe he asked that. What kind of question is that? And then a half a second later, I was like, wait a minute. I ran the question back in my head. I was like, wait a minute. He just implied in that question, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? That I had something to do with my own pain experience, meaning that I actually had some control there. And I was like, that's amazing. So he took me in one question from victimhood to empowerment. That was powerful for me. And he got my attention with that question. So from then on, I was like, I'm all ears. I'd like to hear what you have to say. And I learned a lot from him. So what are you doing to contribute to your pain? Very important question. one of the things that, and then the next thing out of his mouth was, don't judge the moment. And of course, there I was, like, still in defensive mode going, dude, I'm just sitting in this room. I'm not judging anybody, right? But he didn't mean me. He didn't mean that. He meant judging my pain. And I realized that I've been judging my whole life. I've been judging pain as bad. And that we're in a war I've been in a war with pain, and we're all in a war with pain, because what happens when we're little and, we're all playing together and one of us bumps into another one and, and what happens? The adults run into the space and they try and make the pain go away as fast as possible. And what is the subtext of that message? Pain is bad. We're at war with pain. And so we have this programming that pain is bad. What if we looked at pain as information in the system? One of my teachers has this great quote. He says, pain is the currency of transformation. Be careful how you spend it. Yeah. So we have agency in that space, as much as we may feel victimized by our pain. And I'm not saying that we're not victimized by it. I'm just saying that we have more power in that space than we realize. And part of that is that we're judging our experience as bad, rather than looking at that's relevant. Fiat Fines was who I was saying had come in before. Thank you so much for your comments. So what are you doing to contribute to your pain? And don't judge the moment. Those were like so important for me. The other thing was that I learned to leverage the power of the breath, because healing has this, you can't heal with positive affirmations. You've got to start at that level. You have to start with the nervous system and work your way up. So first we have to have a sense of safety in the nervous system. And how do we attain that? We do that with long, deep breathing. There's an intimate connection between a long exhale and safety in the nervous system. So if you are breathing nice, long, and deep, and that exhale is as long or longer than the inhale, now you're sending a signal to the nervous system, which takes about 3 minutes of extended, continue to breathe like that. 3 minutes, the nervous system gets a signal, oh, I'm safe after all. And you'll start to calm down. And anybody who's here, who's having a pain experience, I challenge you, I encourage you, I invite you to try that long, deep breathing. Exhale as long or longer than the inhale for 3 minutes and see if you don't calm down. That's the first step in retraining the nervous system into a new way of living. And I still, to this day, every morning, after all this time, every morning I sit down and I do an 11-minute breath practice of some kind of regulating breath practice that reminds my nervous system, this is how we do life. We do it like this, not this dysregulated, stress habit that I did for years. We're doing it like this today. Mm-hmm. So those are the three big tools that I can give like right away in this setting, and plus the ancestor clearing that we did.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. So Relevant says that pain can inspire creativity also.
It certainly can.
And I think that's a positive way of looking at it. Like, not being so stuck in that pain, maybe not looking at it as something bad that we've been programmed or that society has labeled pain as bad, but it could be a good thing. It could like inspire us.
Yeah, that's why it's information. I can give you an experience of when pain inspired my creativity. I had migraines for 7 years, and they showed up. I couldn't find the pattern. They just showed up when they wanted to. So the pattern was there's no pattern. So very unpredictable, very dysregulating to the nervous system. And the very last migraine I had, I'm lying in my bed at the end of the house. It's quiet, dark, and I'm just like curled up. Mm-hmm. And just hurting. And I seriously, I heard this, people would think I'm crazy, but this is what happened. I heard this voice in my head that said, I feel like that was Creator coming in and helping, this grace. I heard this voice say, Elizabeth, clearly your strategy is not working. Why don't you try a contrary action? And I'm like, what? What? And what is a contrary action even? What is that? What would that even be? And I kind of took that in, and I kind of dropped into that creative space, and I was like, oh, I'm going to stop fighting with the pain. A contrary action would be, because I mean, I could fight, like, I could fight with pain until the cows come in and then some. I mean, that's just like, I'm really good at that. And I realized that the contrary action in this space was to stop fighting with the pain. So I stopped fighting with the pain. And you know what happened? I never got another migraine. That migraine, it just dissolved, and I never got another one. Now, this wasn't the end of my back pain or my gut pain, because I had a lot of medication on board, and I had ancestor burden and this and that. Mm-hmm. But that was a space where at least that healed, that had the, that creative impulse that came in was powerful enough to clear those. And that was a huge deal. So thank you, Relevant Feels, for bringing that in.
Right. You touched on the ancestry. What are I'd like to know your thoughts or in your opinion about science saying that memory or trauma can be passed down through the DNA. So that's like almost like ancestral. What's your thoughts and opinions about that?
Well, that's a whole nother podcast, but I can give you the answer to that is yes. I got a foot in science and I got a foot in the spiritual world. I'm kind of a bridge between them. One of the things that I looked at because I have a plant science degree, but I learned a lot about ecosystems and evolutionary biology and animal behavior. I kind of studied all those things. And one of the things that I realized looking at evolution and studying DNA and epigenetics, which is the DNA is the hardware, like the hardware of your computer, and the epigenetics is the software. So it's what's happening with it's the program you're putting on the hardware, right? So what I realized was, think about the information that all our past generations, all the stuff that they ran into in their environment, and the information that they needed to keep in order for the next generation to survive.
Gotcha.
And so the way I see it is, the information that we come in with in this world is the evolutionary system, the biological system's best guess of what we're going to have to face in this generation. Now, that's what I call a plastic system. There's some wiggle room in there, right, for variability and mutations and all kinds of changes. There's all kinds of changes in the environment. That's baked into the cake of our programming, right? The hardware and the software. And so part of what we come in with is not just the information that we need. There's also some stuff in there that, like, we actually don't need that, right? And that's the negative patterning of probably a lot of people listening to this probably have relatives that worry all the time, and maybe their grandmother or their great grandmother, they worry all the that's ancestral. That's like, there's a reason that's to survive. They worry all the time. But the problem with that is that it's wasting a lot of energy. It's keeping us in that dysregulated hypervigilant space. Mm-hmm. and that's very caustic to the system. So and we can't think straight when we're in that worry space.
Yeah, so, that's my mother. Like, constantly, she takes anxiety medication because, like, she's always worrying.
Yeah, well, I was on that for a long time, a benzodiazepine, and the problem with those is that they'll kick you in the butt. They'll give you the thing that you're taking them for. I ended up with panic attacks, so I didn't have panic attacks. I ended up with more anxiety than I had to begin with because I was on them for too long. So that's just kind of a warning sign. And the problem with getting off of them is that they're so tricky to get off of that you need medical intervention and help, because if you just stop taking them, you can have a seizure. So it's not that thing to mess with. Like it's very a very powerful medicine.
I know. I heard of this herb. I think it's called ghost pipe, and it's good for addictions. So I'm wondering if that would be something good for also like coming off different medications, so you don't get the side effects as well.
It'd be a great question for a doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I was just like, because you said, the about coming off of that and whatnot and the side effects. It just popped into my head.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, now Rachel H has just made a very interesting observation. She says, but being a mother, you can't help but worry. And I'm going to share with you something I learned from my son when he went, because I was kind of constantly, I had a running under in my own programming as a mother, concern, worry. And my son went to Los Angeles when he was, you know, uh, college, and I worried because he wasn't around. I worried more, and I remember him calling one time and saying, "Mom, instead of you worrying about something that's bad going to happen, can you vision that I'm doing well?"
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's amazing. And I noticed how it felt in my nervous system, and I noticed how it felt in his nervous system. So I really had to change things in order to, I had to learn how to, I had to bring the breath in, and I had to practice a lot, but um, I learned to vision him well instead of worrying about something happening to him. And that was a big shift for me. So that is something that there's one thing to be concerned and making sure that you're kind of covering your bases with your kids. It's another thing to be in that worry energy, because it's caustic to the nervous system. It's putting you into that dysregulated space, and the people around you can feel it too. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's how I would address that. Thank you so much, Rachel H, for bringing that in.
Reality check. Definitely. Yeah, as mothers, we can't help but, want to make sure our children are safe, but
Mm-hmm.
can't send our nervous systems into like hypervigilance all the time, thinking about what could be, because that's not good for our mental health. So
Yeah, it's not good for our kids either, because we're actually teaching them a way to be, and they're great mimics. So we don't want them mimicking that kind of behavior, right?
right,
So
definitely.
yeah, I didn't learn that until it was until later. So but that's funny now, because my son is a trauma coach, so he knows all about it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So if anybody wanted to, what kind of services do you offer? Let's start there.
Well, I do offer chronic pain. I work with people that are in recovery from chronic pain. I work with people that I'm a particularly good coach in the getting off of opiates or benzodiazepines. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a great coach in the space because I've actually lived that. And so I work well in that space alongside of doctor's orders to help you kind of what kind of daily things you need to do to support your healing. So I work with that. I work in the addiction recovery space as a recovery coach. And I'm an ancestor clearing practitioner. So I do private sessions, 25-minute or 50-minute sessions. you can go onto my website and book a free 15-minute session just to get a feel for the work. And I'm all over social media, and there's lots of free information on the website. I really gear personal sessions to what the client needs. So I really the work is to meet them where they are, and then we go from there.
Right. So for the people on Apple and Spotify, the website is elizabeth-kip.com. So if you want to check her out on her website and maybe book your 15-minute free session with her, that's where you can find her. And I'll also have the links in the description as well if you want to, visit her on social media, follow her, and go to her website and see what she's all about. So I definitely appreciated you coming onto the podcast and spreading awareness and talking about your ancestral clearing. And for those who are interested, I am going to the segment where Elizabeth did the meditation. I'm going to clip that and I'm going to put that on YouTube. So if you want to visit it later on and do that, definitely that's going to be available. So check that out. That'll be in the meditation playlist on my channel. And I just want to say thank you for coming on, and I'm sure everybody got some good insights. And anybody else have any questions for Elizabeth before we wrap up this episode?
Well, thank you for all your kind words. Thank you so much for the invitation and your platform. There's so much healing needed in this world. We really need an army of us. So I'm thrilled to be your colleague, and again, thank you for your platform.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I think there's so many different modalities of holistic healing, and to bring the knowledge to everybody who may be looking for something different or unique, or, because we can't all do it all. Even though I try to do it all, I know I can't do it all. So, just spread awareness. I think there's a lot of people out there going more the holistic route and getting away from modern medicine. So I just want to bring that awareness and also the resources to do that. So
beautiful. Well, thank you again. And thank you, everyone, for your comments and your presence.
Well, we're going to wrap up this episode. And again, thank you. And maybe I'll have you on again and we'll dig deep into more of the science and the carrying of the ancestral trauma in our DNA and passing it on to our children and from generation to generation. I'd love to explore that. I'm a little science nerd, so.
I get it. There's a woman named Rachel Yehuda who has done, that's Yehuda, Yehuda, who's done landmark work on literally checking that out. So I would encourage you to Google her and her team and look up her work. If you want to nerd out on that, that's a great place to start.
Definitely. I'll have to look into it. That'll be one of my on my to-do list with my many books that I need to read as well.
There you go.
So, all right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Allied Holistic Lounge. We'll see you next Sunday, 5:00 p.m. And thank you all for tuning in.
Health. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration and insight on your own healing journey. Before we wrap up, I'm excited to give you a sneak peek at next week's guest, Madhavi Parikh. Madhavi is a physician assistant who blends her expertise in medicine with her passion for meditation and healing to offer clinical coaching for those on the cancer journey. Through her unique ISB health model, Madhavi combines conventional medicine with complementary approaches and addresses the 4 essential areas of well-being: spiritual, physical, intellectual, and emotional. She empowers patients and caregivers alike with education, support, and compassion, helping them become active participants in their health journey. Be sure to tune in next week for a truly inspiring conversation that's sure to resonate with anyone seeking a holistic approach to health. See you then.